welcome here to an all-new edition of the Dolphin Dive, diving into the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. And this conversation, my second with Coach Rockwell here with me today, is very meaningful. First and foremost, because of how I was raised. My relationship with God, my strong faith in my family, we always have focused on opening your door to somebody and letting them see where, you know, what you do, your day to day, who you are as a person behind the scenes. And Dick Rockwell and his wife have been extremely gracious with welcoming me into their home. We're here in front of their fireplace that is surrounded by a ton of love, and this house that is truly just very, as they call it, homey, relaxing, and a place where you can sit and feel like yourself. So with this Dolphin Dive in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with LeMoyne College, it's meant the world to me for LeMoyne to make history on their side, never having a partnership like this, and for me as well, for this to be the first partnership of this kind with WakeUpCall with Dan Tortora and Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. And Dick Rockwell, for me, we could talk about the field having his name, we could talk about the jersey being retired, we could speak on life as an athletics director, life as a head coach, but today, more than anything else, we're going to get to know the man, Dick Rockwell. So, Coach, first and foremost, thank you for having me.
Well, welcome, Dan, and thank you for the kind words. It's always, I enjoyed our conversation we had a year ago. It seems impossible. A year's gone so quickly, and I look forward to visiting with you today.
Yeah, and Coach, and I appreciate those words. You, as I was saying, you are so synonymous with LeMoyne. I would feel that people would have to try very intently to miss you, to not hear your name when it comes to LeMoyne, and that's, you know, synonymous connection of Dick Rockwell to LeMoyne College. What does that mean to you, that throughout history your name is just such a big part of the community? It's a part of Central and Upstate New York, it's a part of the baseball world in general, and when it comes to LeMoyne, it is very hard to miss Dick Rockwell.
Yeah, well, let me be honest with you. It's very special. When Pam and I came to LeMoyne College in 1967, it was just going to be a pass-through with me. And I became so impressed. A couple of Jesuit priests took me under their wings, taught me, so to speak, the ropes. They became second fathers to me. And it would not be truthful if I didn't tell you the opportunities we had to move and so forth and so on. But LeMoyne is special to me, and I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate being associated with LeMoyne College. I spent a lot of time there. I put a lot of work into it. I said at the time, I hope the program's better today than it was when I took it over. I'm a baseball coach, but I became an AD for 17 years. So I think that I owe the college, and I owe maybe a half a dozen of the original Jesuit priests more than I ever delivered to the college. So when people say kind things about myself and LeMoyne College, I'm really indebted to some of the old-time Jesuits.
And you speak on that, the Jesuit priests taking you under their wing, and whatever you've done for the college, they did more for you. Why say that? What did they do? Why were they such a huge part of your success? Why were they so impactful to this day that you want to make sure to spotlight them when everyone wants to spotlight you? You're turning that spotlight essentially back to the Jesuit priest.
Well, I think that's an easy question. My life was baseball. I came here. I thought the most important thing a college baseball player was hitting a triple or going first or third on a base hit. They explained to me very easily. You come to school for an education, and education is why these student athletes are here. Family values has never been a thing, because we come from a strong value family oriented, and it just fit in. The mistakes that I made early, they very quietly work with me. Oh my gosh, Dan, we could sit here for 2 hours. I could tell you the advantages of what some of those Jesuit priests meant to both Pam and I. And then when our children came up through, we became a family. And I think that hopefully, as LeMoyne expands and as LeMoyne gets bigger and as LeMoyne that they don't lose that family orientation or that family commitment that if you work there you become part of the family. Now I know maybe in today's society it's kind of boring and so forth, but I think it becomes extremely important, and it made it so much easier. I've been asked, how did you get so many good players come to LeMoyne College? Obviously, I bought into the system. I bought in, and I had an easy sell, and maybe I went overboard at times selling myself to a player, but at the same time, I had a good product to sell, and so it, along with some hard work, it became very easy.
Well, and you talk about the family values and not losing that connection to the Jesuits and that feeling of family, that it's more than just coaching, it's more than just winning. And with LeMoyne moving from NCAA Division II to Division I, we know baseball has history there, we know women's lacrosse has history there in the MAC, but now as an institution fully fledged at Division I, this is uncharted territory for Dolphins that they're swimming in, essentially. What advice do you give to LeMoyne College about protecting their identity and what makes them special and what makes them unique, what makes you love them, what makes me love them? How do they protect that in an ever-evolving, changing climate of collegiate athletics?
Wow, that's really tough to say. I think one of the most important things you can do is to have exit interviews with your students, the ones that are graduating, going out, maybe where the kids are transferring. I think that I've said this, you know, when you're in a coaching business, especially at a competitive level, and we were at the stage where the kids were getting quite a bit of money, signing professional contracts, and become very competitive. And sometimes you had parents and so forth that wanted their kids to play more, do this and do that. The kids know who are the better players. The kids know what's going on. If I were to sit one of our kids down and say, who's your favorite instructor up there and why? And they would tell you, well, who's the one in the, and they would tell you that. I think that if you continue to keep the dialogue with your bread and butter, which is your students, and in the athletic department, it's your student athlete. Once you have an open dialogue and you ask questions and you're really concerned about change and so forth, what a change has going to Division I affected on your life at LeMoyne? Yeah. Is it easier? Is it better? Do you see the advantages? Are there disadvantages? And I think you get a pretty good feedback as to the direction that you want to go with your program. And I think hopefully that's being done, because I think that I believe, and the best advice you can get from the people that are there every day and go to practice every day, or whether it's the swim program or the lacrosse program or whatever, you talk to those kids, they'll know pretty much what's going on.
You know, you talk about having difficult conversations. Everything that you're saying, have exit interviews with those that are graduating, have exit interviews with those that are transferring. What you're asking people to do, administration to do, coaches to do, is to have conversations where you may not hear what you want to hear.
Oh, absolutely. If I don't know, I'm not an expert on being an administrator, but if you had a staff that only told you what you wanted to hear, you're not going to be very successful. And you've got to have open dialogue, and some of those dialogues can really you take a head coach and a pitching coach. Mike Barlow and I used to have some real serious discussions, but he knew he ran that pitching staff, and I have authority over the total thing. And both of our goals are the same. We want to be successful. We want to get this pitcher. If he's got professional ability, how are we going to get him to the next level? And I think that when you go from Division II to Division I, it exposes some problems in your program. Now, do you want to address those concerns? Are you able to fix those concerns, or are we just going to say, well, hey, we're here, we're going to go from here? That's an administrative type of decision you have to make. But I do think when you make a move like this, it exposes some weaknesses in your program, and you've got to recognize and get some dialogue going as to, hey, are these correctable things we can make? Because there's no question. It's much more competitive Division I than it is Division II. The coaches are better. The coaches are usually a little more experienced. And one of the negative parts about this is when you get a good Division I coach, and Mary did that extremely well, the women's basketball, they don't stay. And that's the risk you're going to run at the Division I. You're going to groom coaches, and the salaries today are just well, those of us back in you just didn't make that kind of money that they're making now. So you got to take a look at that. You got to take a look at who you're hiring. You got to take a look at the assistants, who you're hiring, and but I think it all works out. As long as you're able to have dialogue about concerns within, you'll be fine.
And you brought up something that we were talking about off the air, that it is an arms race. And the reality for me of seeing things that are under construction, right? Constantly moving, constantly changing. Texas A&M, having a friend down there that played at Syracuse University and was in the staffing afterward, Joe Fields, we did a Zoom call. He's sitting in his office. His office is massive. He's sitting on a couch, and I'm seeing this huge office behind him, and he goes, "Oh, Dan," he's like, just so you know, and I'm sorry about this, but like, we're in the office right now. They're building me a new building. They're building me a new office. I said, for what? It was this beautifully huge office that he had, but bigger and better down in Texas. And you see in the state of New York that there's different places that are constructing this and constructing that and building facilities. And we see what Syracuse is doing down the road from LeMoyne. We see LeMoyne, putting a press box into the softball, getting new dugouts for baseball, putting the concession and bathrooms area in for Ted Grant Field. There is this arms race, especially in Division I. And I think just talking about the SEC coach, whatever they build in 2024, they're going to build a new building in 2026 and throw that one out like it's 80 years old. So how do you keep up in an arms race when we have a cautionary tale of there's teams moving from Division II to Division I, there's institutions doing this as a whole like LeMoyne? How do you function in the arms race? Second part of that question is, are you happy that you're not coaching in the arms race era?
Well, as we talked a little bit off camera, I was on the baseball committee for 6 years and 7 years, and I was chairman 2 years during the arm race. And it was the SEC against everybody else. And it's funny you mentioned Texas A&M, because LeMoyne played at a regional at Texas A&M. The athletic director, Wally, took my place as chairman of the baseball committee, so I'm very... The thing that concerns me the most with the arms race, and now with the portal, and now you're paying athletes and so forth and so on. Facilities are becoming It the thing that used to upset me the most, when I would be recruiting a student, recruiting a ball player to come to LeMoyne College, they could care less about what they were going to take or what they were going to do. They wanted to be this. Your facilities become so important, and as I mentioned earlier, you have got to keep up. You made some very good points, and I think it's really enriched the campus. When you talk to press box, you talk to school boards, you talk to bathrooms, all things that are needed. I can remember with the president of LeMoyne College, we put dugouts, and he kept telling me how I should be so impressed with the dugouts. And finally, I said to him, Father, with all due respect, every field has dugouts. Dugouts are not special. So when we talk about putting a press box on a thing, every field has a press box at this level. Now, what worries me the most is where are student athletes going to work out in the winter time? And I think that it's expensive. You got to build. You got to continuously rebuilding. You got to. And I think that the concerns that coaches have today is if you're in a small Division I program, and if you can develop a player, he's going to jump to the ACC. He's going to jump to the SEC if he's got that kind of caliber. And as I said off camera, and the thing that worries me the most about, let's take baseball for example, the criticism that we haven't had a position player drafted since Owens left is a concern, because we're not getting that kind of player. And now, is it because of facilities? Do we have to upgrade the facilities? I did say off camera, one of the most positive things from a baseball coach and an athletic director is the grounds crew, how great a job they did with that field this spring. I mean, that field was the best that I've seen it in a tough spring with all the rain we've had. But see, that's just taken for granted anymore. That if you didn't have that, I'll go to school B because they do this, they do this, they do that. And, well, what about the education? We have this, we got this. I found during my time, the majority of players, hey, we'll take the course, but we want this, 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 and this. And that worries me a little bit. I don't know the resources at LeMoyne. I know that if we're going to keep up, if we're going to be competitive, are we just going to be an also man there? That's somebody's decision that they've got to make. And if they want to be competitive, you're going to have to spend some money, and you're going to have to upgrade facilities. And you start right off. I mean, we got a track team, but we don't have a track. For example, that's just an example. We got teams getting ready to play in the spring, got to drive 15, 20 minutes off campus. Where's the field house? So, yeah, those are concerns of mine. Now, they weren't as big a concerns when we were in Division II because a lot of other schools didn't have that. So when you ask me the original question, you go from 2 to 1, I think that most people would rather play 1 if you're a competitive person.
Yeah.
But if you're also a competitive person, you want some, and I hate to use the word perks, but you've got to have some perks to go with that. Now you get into an academic discussion with academic people. Hey, they don't come here to play second base, they come here so they can go to law school, or they can do this or that. I understand that. And you could put a second baseman out there that can't field a ground ball, that's going to go to law school. But is that what you really want? I mean, do you want to be competitive at this level? So there's a lot of trade-offs in this, and I think I'm pretty confident that the people that made the decision to make this move have done their research, and I feel that evaluating, now this is just Dick Rockwell talking. If you're evaluating 1 year in, where are we? I'd say in Dick Rockwell's mind, I was completely wrong with the basketball. I did not think the basketball could compete. Division I pointed that we had two coaches, the men's and the women's, that are very, very good, capable coaches, and we lost one. And they played at a level that I didn't think we did. Now, I did not think that we would be dominated in lacrosse, in baseball, in softball, and that caught me by surprise. We just not of what we were used to. It's an awakening. I hope people making a decision see the awakening and say, hey, how are we going to fix this? And but it caught me completely. If I'm being honest, I thought we'd dominate the spring. We would take our lumps in the winter. It emphasized to me how good coaches those two basketball coaches were. And now I don't know the assistants, but they did a really good job on that team, and with both of them, the men and women. I'm sad to see that we lost the women's coach, because I think she's going to be an up and comer. You know, I kind of compare her to Owens with the baseball. Now, when I was the athletic director, and the MAC threw us out of the conference, Owen said, hey, I'm not a Division II coach, I'm a Division I coach. So then he started looking, then he went to Bryant. Now he's at Rutgers. But he worked at it, and you knew he was good.
Yeah.
Mary's the same way. Our men's coach at basketball is the same way. Now, hopefully, the loyalty or the same feeling that they have toward LeMoyne and the institution is like I had, and they will stay.
Yeah.
But the money is so much different today that you can't expect the basketball coach making X amount of dollars here to turn down triple or double what they can make somewhere else. Coaching is coaching, and most coaches want to advance. I happen to get logged in there. You talked to Pam, and we had no idea we were going to stay. As I said at the beginning of this, I owe so much to the old-time treasurers that were here that helped me develop and nurtured me all the way through. Because, as I said, I came as a baseball person, and I thought I didn't see the total picture, and I became aware of the total picture, and I was smart enough to make adjustments, and I was smart enough to make changes. But I think I came through that Title IX situation. I came through where our facilities did get better. So I think change is necessary. The college has made a drastic change from 2 to 1. Now we're in the evaluating part of it. What they come up with will dictate where we'll go in the future, I think. And hopefully they'll see where some of the short changes came up, where we were lacking in some areas, and make those necessary changes. Yeah. Hopefully, I've taken a long time doing a very tough question you asked me about the arms race, because that is so important today, and competing in this arms race, are we up to it? I have no idea.
Yeah, I think there's schools that are going from D2 to D1. There's schools that are within the SEC itself when we look at the prowess of how much money they spend there, but then there's schools within that struggle. There's schools within the ACC that are so different in that. So even within the conferences that might be spending more, or different institutions that might be doing things, it doesn't mean for the collective. It doesn't mean for schools within the same state. And collegiate athletics has had so many changes. So from the seat of an athletics director, which you've had that experience, if you were sitting today as an athletic director with NIL, with the transfer portal, with realignment making no geographical sense. Games within conferences are against teams that are now 23 to 2,400 miles away. If you drove to these games, you would be on the road for 31 hours, 40 hours, whatever it may be. So when you look at where we are today, with the NCAA changing its president, the NCAA looking at its constitution, trying to figure out how to define certain things, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, realignment, mega conferences returning after they were broken up years ago. If you were an athletic director today, and your job was to take care of your institution, but also keep an eye on all of these grandiose things, how do you do that?
I have no idea. And I say that, I don't know, let me just talk as a baseball coach. I don't know how I could handle the portal. I don't know if I brought a kid in that wasn't drafted and he developed to where he was going to be a player and he jumped and he went to the ACC. I don't know how I could handle that. Now, you could use the argument, geez, coach, you lost so many juniors that signed as juniors now. How did you react to that? And of all the kids that I had signed as juniors, there's only one that I tried to talk to coming back. And I didn't think he was ready to go out and play, and he did, and did okay. But the one thing you learn as a coach, you can't take it personal. So I guess from the portal situation, we talk about, when you get into these seminars and you listen about the student athlete, and we got to protect the student athlete, and then you put a student athlete from Rutgers to Southern Cal, he goes on a Tuesday and he plays Southern Cal on a Tuesday, and then they stay over and they're going to play UCLA on Thursday, and then they're going to stop and they're going to play Texas A&M on Sunday coming back. Now where's the student athlete in this situation? I think people got to understand there's a difference between Division I NEC and Division I SEC. That the parameters within, the thing that bothers me the most is you brought up very eloquently, the travel. I mean, Chicago's coming in, I say. Now, I hope they don't bust them. You're going to fly to Chicago? No, that's going to cost you money. How's the revenue coming in? The revenue that we get from the NCAA are going to offset the cost? I don't know those, but I know as an athletic director, when you look at your total budget and you look at your schedule and you look, all right, now this is what we have to work with. Now, how are we going to stay within these parameters? And now the conference comes in and tells me, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm going to say, well, is the conference going to reimburse this? And they say, well, no, but this is what we got to do. Then I've got to go to my administration and say, then back in the old days, the administration said, well, why are we doing this? Give me the rationale. So then I can remember sitting in the president's office, hiring a basketball coach. And it came down, and finally I said to the president, hey, Father, with all due respect, we have a kid that graduated from LeMoyne, was student athlete of the year, was on the dean's list, everything that we want, and now we're telling him we're not going to hire him as a basketball coach?
Yeah.
Give me the rationale behind that. You know what he said to me? Why didn't you use that argument 20 minutes ago when we could have been out of here? But my point being, if you're proud of your students, in the case of athletics, your student athletes, and you feel good about you could protect them as far as the academic load, and that they're not spending all the time on the road, and so forth and so on. It's if you really want to make it simple, you could drive them here to Cortland and play Cortland. You could drive from here to Binghamton and play Binghamton. You could drive from here to Oswego. Now that's not cool, and I understand that. But if you really wanted to get back to the old days,
Yeah.
of let's protect the student athletes and let's do this and this and do that. For years I've argued the Ivy League seems to have their things in order. And people will laugh at you. Yeah, I'd say would you rather go see Cornell, Harvard, or would you rather go up and see Syracuse and Clemson? Well, they all laugh at you. That's a no-brainer. And athletics are athletics, and competition is competition. And depending on, I used to argue that with admissions and financial aid is that, you know, you guys are missing a tool. These coaches that are in all these high schools and they can get you kids, but you got to give them some direction, and you got to help them along the way. And now it's become, what can the athletic program do for us?
Yeah.
Versus what was the institution doing for that? Now, I don't think that's very popular today, but I think it boils down. For example, I talked to a baseball coach. He's got 55 kids on his roster. I said, how in the world can you handle 55 kids? He tells me, for every kid I have over 40, I can get an assistant for every 10 kids. So the more I carry, the more I can get back. Well, that's fine if you're using athletics to get students.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to win, there's no possible way. You could have 50 kids there and winning games, because you can. Again, I only go back to baseball, but it's got to be similar with the other sports. The amount of time you spend one-on-one with an individual is so important that I think sometimes in today's coaching they forget that.
Yeah.
That, but if I've got 50 kids, I'll get. We had Tom Brown and Jimmy DeShays, Joe Bone, all three pitchers. A Bone got hurt in AAA. The rest of them are going to the big leagues. Obviously, done very well in the big leagues. I had an assistant coach who wanted to work with those three. I said, leave those three alone. We want to work with Jones, Smith, and Williams. They're the ones that need to coach it. My point being is, student athletes, I think it would equate to everyone, but baseball players in particular. You've got to work on their strengths and weaknesses, and you've got to work one-on-one with them.
Yeah.
And these programs have got 50 players. My gosh, the buses are mega buses coming in here with only, I'm saying, there is no possible way. So that has changed now. Is that for the betterment? You could argue it is. I don't know. And when you ask about what I would do as an athletic director, I have no idea. Everything has happened so fast, and I'm sure that if I could talk to Tom Nyland today and say to him, boy, it's come a long ways, Coach, I'm not sure he'd be positive with how far it's come and whatever it did. And because he was a very family-oriented. If you work for Tom Nyland, you bought into this whole thing, or you didn't work, and so that's part of it, I guess. And I think if you look at the traditional LeMoyne colleges, where they started, and the progress they've made, you'd be very pleased. And I think I would hope that athletics doesn't dominate the conversation, but played an important role in the progress the college has made.
Yeah. You know, and there's so much to it. Like you said, there's no easy answer, as we're here inside of the house of Dick Rockwell and spending some time with him on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of our travel Heritage Hill Studios, and of course in this edition of Dolphin Dive with a longtime head coach and athletic director over at LeMoyne, and of course in the sport of baseball and Dick Rockwell Field. Coach, before, there's so many things that this conversation creates, and the opportunity to talk about so many different things with you. Like you said, you could spend 2 hours on one thing. I could sit here and have a sandwich with you in the family room and talk about a bunch of things on my mind that will provoke 20 other things, but getting to know you, the man, is something that maybe we never have seen. We've seen the baseball, we've seen the athletic side, we've seen LeMoyne, the Dolphins, who made it to the big leagues, and all of those pieces. But now that you've had time to relax, if you do that, if you allow yourself to relax, but now that you've had some time to sit and be with your thoughts, reflect on your life, reflect on what you've done as a person, as a coach, outside of being a coach, as an athletic director, outside of being that, how would you describe who you are, who you have become, what makes you tick? Because Dick Rockwell is not just a baseball coach. You're not just a husband. You're not just a son. You're not just a friend. You are yourself, and yourself is a combination of everything you've experienced, everything that you've seen, the interactions you've had, the relationships you've made. Who is Dick Rockwell?
Wow, Dan, you're asking some tough questions. I think an easy part would be, as most people know, our younger son graduated from LeMoyne, became a very successful high school coach at CNS.
Yeah.
Gave up the coaching to watch his daughter play softball. The daughter is a sophomore. He didn't want to give up that baseball. But he did want to miss seeing her play. Now, as his father, that made me extremely proud, because he has put values, his family values, in place in the profession. And one of the things that I try to do is I try to see both of our boys played, and I tried to schedule around seeing them as much as I could. But I spent too much time on the road recruiting. I spent too much time in clinics. I spent too much time. All my life was involved with it. And I think one of the regrets I have is I didn't spend more time. For example, my wife would argue we never took a family vacation as a family. 4th of July, I'd be at a Legion tournament at Plattsburgh. Labor Day, I'd be at this tournament this place. And my theory was, if I wasn't there, somebody else would be there and they'd get that player. And that's not going to happen with me.
Yeah.
So having said all that, I enjoyed. We have a nice hunting camp in Pennsylvania. I enjoyed. Steve Owens comes up from Rutgers and he hunts the first 3 days with us. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching our kids play. I enjoyed watching, like this afternoon, I said, we got to get out of here. We're watching the granddaughter play softball, so forth. But I would like to think that as dedicated as I was to what I did, my family values never wavered, and I think that I was brought up that way. I got nurtured by, again, I keep saying over and over and over, I got nurtured by Jesuit because it became such an important thing in my life.
Yeah.
That, so I think that I'm a low-key guy, don't get too emotional, and so forth, and I try to put things in proper perspective. I get very humbled when I hear, like you say, very positive things, and when I read this or read that, it's positive. It makes me feel good, but humbled at the same time, and I think that sometimes we put too much on what he accomplished. You ask what I think is an extremely important question. What does Dick Rockwell stand for? And I think that is at the crux of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And I think that doing that job, and at the same time, even though you didn't spend as much time with the family as you probably should have. I tried to spend more time than I maybe should have, but I can remember we used to have 4th of July, this cul-de-sac would always have a 4th of July party. It was a big thing. And one year she said to me, "Jesus, will you please stay home for one of these?" And I said, "Geez, there's a Legion tournament there," and so forth and so on. I stayed home. And the next year we weren't very good. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. And I said I'd never do that again. But I think that the pride you have in yourself, the pride that you have in your profession, and in my case, the pride that I had in the institution that I work for, the people I work for, is all the motivation you need to become successful. Now, successful is measured in many different ways. I understand that. In my mind, I was successful. I did what I worked hard. I saw some accomplishments come out of that.
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of shortcomings. Now, I'm saying I hope that the administration looks at the shortcomings. There are an awful lot of shortcomings with me too. But I had direction that Tom Lyman, as the athletic director, really get after you. A couple of gestures I'd say would really get after you with. I mean, it was they were open dialogues, and here's one. If you look up on the wall, you see a picture of Carmen Basilio. I shared an office with Carmen Basilio for what, 20, 25 years. You talk about a man who was at the top of his game, champion, a world champion, the Hickok belt winner, the most humble, nicest. Until you turned the thing and saw one of his fights, you couldn't believe it's the same guy.
Yeah.
And had a tremendous influence on the way I worked, the way I handled kids. And you'd say, well, geez, Carmen Basilio was a fighter. How? But there were guys like that that had such an influence that became such a part. Here's the Hickok belt winner, the best athlete of the world in that year, babysitting for Pam and I so we can go to a movie on a Friday night. I mean, now you could tell people that, they don't. What are you, nuts? Well, that's the kind of thing you have. He'd say to me, "Hey, Rock, what are you and Pam doing this weekend?" I said, "Well, you know, if you want to go to a movie, I'll come watch the kids," and he'd show fight films, and he'd do, you know. And they were little, and so when the opportunity comes, why would you want to leave that? You know, money's never meant anything. That sounds stupid. Money's really never meant anything to her. We've always had enough. So the opportunities to go other places, in my instance, didn't outweigh what I had here.
Yeah.
And so it was a, you know, we've been married 59 years, 50 years. My marriage with LeMoyne for 40 years is about the same way, you know. Why would you ever want to change? I mean, both parts are good. So now, maybe that sounds corny in today's world, I don't know. But see, when you grew up in small towns and when you grew up, those things became important. And not to say you couldn't grow up in a big city and have the same thing, I'm not saying that, but you knew everybody on your street, you did all this, and you became, in my case, I knew I wanted to be a player. I worked to try to be a player.
Yeah.
And when it came time that I no longer was that good a player, hey, now what are you going to do? And I think that that's where change, and that's where you just change with the thing. And if you talk to your own kids, or in our case, talking to grandkids, and say, hey, if you work as hard as you can work, if you dedicate yourself to the topic that you're doing, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And obviously, you talk to people, say, well, he doesn't lack for self-confidence. Now, where did that come from? I don't know where that came from. I've never had that problem, and we talked off campus before. I'll be as direct and honest as I can be, because that's who I am, and I think it's been a big part of our life, and it's been a very good life, and I guess as you look up there thinking like a Dolphin, maybe I do think like a Dolphin. I don't know. But I see a ward from Cooperstown up there. You know, I mean, where can you come out of a small town and have that stuff? Because you could swing the bat, I don't know. But I think that the thing that, from the coaching standpoint, I think the thing that pleases me the most is like in June, the alumni from the 60s to the 80s are having a big get-together. And there's a tremendous amount of kids that come back. And I think the letters and anniversary, especially when people contact, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, hey, maybe it did turn out okay. And I think just you being here doing this makes me realize a little more. Maybe I did have an impact, and maybe it was positive. If it was, I'm very grateful for that, and I've always been very humble and very grateful for what has come about.
So, essentially, coming off of that, we look at life through our eyes, right? And what we've seen, what we've experienced, what we know, the relationships we have. And people always ask, what's the secret? What's the secret to a good marriage? What's the secret to chasing your dreams? What's the secret to truly being happy? What does happiness mean? All these very existential questions and larger than life questions. If you had to give advice based on the years that you've had, the life that you've had, there's so much life in you. I feel that when I talk to you, I feel that when I'm around you. There's so much life coming forward for you, and I hope that this chapter is the best chapter coming up. Up until this point of the book that has been written of Dick Rockwell, what advice would you give to someone on how to live not only a happy life and a rewarding life, but a life that can bear fruit to other people, a life where you can feel good but also give to somebody else? What is the life advice from Dick Rockwell?
I think that's a very easy question. I think the common denominator is hard work. You've got to enjoy what you're doing, and you really got to work hard. It's a competitive world, and you can't take yourself very serious. You've got to have a sense of humor. Tom Nyland gave me one of the biggest compliments. He said, I think you'll be okay as an AD, because he recognizes his shortcomings and will try to work at those shortcomings. I think that's essential. That I used to be on the bus and I'd hear kids complaining about this, and I'd say, hey, you're going to need them someday. And they'd say, well, I don't need anybody. Everybody needs somebody, and you need a role model, or everybody needs a support staff of some kind.
Yeah.
You talked about marriage. We happen to be married 59 years, and it's, there's hard work, there's work, but there's respect on both parts. I think one of the things that sometimes gets misdirected in the coaching business, there has to be respect, mutual respect between player and coach and player. It can't just be the player has respect for the coach. The coach has got to have respect. And that shows up in a conversation. That shows up with tough love. When I say to a kid, hey, if you don't want to do this, you're not going to get any better. Now, I'm telling you. And he either accepts that or he doesn't accept that. And in the case of LeMoyne baseball in the past, if you didn't want to put up with that, there were 3 other kids that would take that place. Well, see, that's part of life, and that's competition, and that's why you know, I go to the gym 3 days a week, and you hear guys talk about it, worked at a factory for 40 years, and he did this, and hated every minute. I can't imagine having a job where you didn't like.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine now. I could argue, well, guy's complacent, he's gonna stay a job, he's not aggressive enough to try to do better, he's not aggressive enough to go that. But if, as I say, I used to travel all over the country as a chairman of the baseball committee. I'd be at Mississippi State, I'd be at LSU, you'd be all over the place, and they say to me, why in the world you stay at one college? And I said, why not? I mean, what is out there, and they just kind of shake their head. I say, hey, Syracuse is not like New York City. I tell those guys LSU that. You know, it's different. And but I think
Taxes would be so much cheaper if it was just us.
you know, you want to be humbled? My next door neighbor.
Yeah.
My next door neighbor brings that picture. The
Yeah.
year I played Miami.
Yeah.
I said, hey, where'd you get that picture? He said, I bought it for 25 cents on eBay. Or something. He said, so,
For the Marlins.
yeah, I played in Miami. But, you know, we were fortunate. Now we've seen 3 different neighborhoods come in this cul-de-sac. We were very fortunate in neighbors. It's a give and take with the neighbors, obviously. It's a give and take. And I think that, get back to your original question, is you can't take yourself so seriously. You have to have a sense of humor. You've got to be able to recognize shortcomings and what you do. And if you want to if you work for Tom Nyland, he would certainly tell you your shortcomings. Now, you had a choice. You want to argue or leave. I've had people say, geez, I respected the guy. I respected what he stood for. I respected what he wanted in a coach and what he wanted in a department. The amount of hours I spent with Carmen Basilio, I mean, when I read his book, The Onion Farmer or something, gosh, I wish I'd have read that before I spent all that time I spent with him.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have asked him these questions. I would have liked to have asked him. You talk about the amount of time I spent with a legend. Why didn't I ask him these guys? Tom Nyland gets shot up in Normandy, jumping into Holland. Why didn't I ask him more about? When you're young, you don't do that stuff. And I think that, but if you're smart, smart's a poor choice of words. You feed off their knowledge. And you feed off the mistakes that they've made. Like Carmen, he used to always say, hey, you know, going to the top is not that tough, but staying there. And when you come back down, you're gonna meet some friends now on the way up. Now, how did you treat them?
Yeah.
That was his big thing. And he talked about the Robinson fight in Yankee Stadium, where they had to take him to the hospital and all this stuff. You know? But his thing was, when we were really going good, sometimes I probably acted like a young kid thinking I was smarter than I was. He had the way to bring you down. And the little sayings he had, now, you could have blown that off, I guess. I was smart enough to not blow it off. So when you talk about, I believe this, any coach, who has he worked under, or who has he played for, that gives him that knowledge?
Yeah.
In other words, you see these assistant coaches jumping here, but now they get the chance to be a head coach. They've worked under some pretty good guys. Now, who have you worked under to shape your ideas?
Yeah.
As to how you're going to handle a program? What mistakes did you see in their programs, or what stood out in their programs? And when I was hiring coaches now, it was obviously different in Division II. I understand that. But some of the questions that I would ask would be off the wall as far as what might be acceptable today. But you could get a feel for where they were coming from. And now, is that a sixth sense? I don't know, but I do know that if you can have an open dialogue, whether you're interviewing someone or somebody's interviewing you and critiquing what you've accomplished or what you've done, and put it in the proper perspective for what it's relevant, then, well, I used to have a mirror behind my office door, and I'd have a parent and a kid, and I'd say to him, I'd like to have you stand in front of the mirror. And the kid would look at you, and he'd, no, stand in the mirror. I said, you can fool your parents. You certainly can fool me. When you look in that mirror, if you don't want to be a player, don't come here. And then I would, like a fool, I would say, go so-and-so. And I'm not, I was going to say numerous, but on more than one occasion, a mother would say to the kid, on the way out the door, you're not going there. You're not going to go there. But my point is, here's what we stand for, here's what we're going to do, and here's if you're going to come and play in this program.
Yeah.
You're a selected group, and I want you to act as though you're selected. And I used to make a big deal out of that stuff. But I believe it's important. You know, you represent us. Like my father, first time he let me have the car at 16. He says, the first time you get in a situation that's going to embarrass your mother, you're never having a car again. So I just want to, you get in those situations, you get the hell out of there. Because if it embarrasses your mother, you're finished with the car. That was his advice. Pretty good advice at the time, didn't make sense. Makes pretty good sense now.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so anyway, I got off the subject a little bit, but I apologize for that. But I think,
No apology.
I think it's all relevant in the total picture of what goes on. Now, we've been fortunate to 82. Now, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, now, I wonder what time you got to go. So I think there's been a lot of lucky things happen in my life, and that's one of them. You know, you take health for granted. I mean, yeah, you had a bypass, yeah, you had this, you had that, but modern medicine makes stuff able so you can do stuff like that. So I think that obviously plays a very important role too.
You have Pam, you have your kids, you have your grandkids, you have your friends. You obviously have parents that you came from. Saving the best for last. What has it meant to you? Like you said, everybody needs somebody. Everybody has a support system. We see you, the coach, but behind Dick Rockwell is all of this love and this support and these people that challenged you, that weren't yes men or yes women, that constructively tried to make you better. What do you want to say to those that are your support system, are your love, and are the ones that when people are handing you awards, you'd like to pick those up and hand it to them?
I do that all the time, say thank you. There's so many people. Dad, you'll be here all afternoon if I haven't thanked the people that had an influence on my life. You know, I was fortunate. I had a high school principal, a guy by the name of Clark Gage, that was got me righted up and helped me go to school and so forth. Well, then when we had first son born, and the announcement was in the paper, we get a letter with a $10 check, and he moved to Syracuse. Well, that man eventually tutored both our boys in math when they were in high school, and it just one little thing like that. There was a recreation director in Waverly that got me into Ithaca College, and at that time Bucky Freeman was the coach, and all the players were at Ithaca, and So I think managers in the minor leagues, and some that I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I was 11, 12, 13, and the neighbor next door had someone come from Brooklyn that was my age and stayed a week. I don't know if it was great, I don't know what it was. But anyway, I got to go to Brooklyn. So they knew I liked baseball. I'm 12 years old. So they take me to Evans Field. I catch a foul ball by Bobby Morgan, who was a backup player. He wasn't the regular third baseman. He was playing that day. I catch a ball. Bobby Morgan, right? 12 years old. When I got sold from Boston to Philadelphia, my first manager in Miami was Bobby Morgan. Turned out to be the worst human being. I went from having him on such a pedestal to what a bum. I mean, so things change, images change about people. And Bobby Morgan was, oh geez. But I do think that the thing was it, and I've been very good at this. I've been very fortunate to receive quite a few awards. Most of the time, I always took a few minutes, and not like, I used to use this thing all the time. Hey, I don't mind you checking your watch, but when you hold the watch up, the thing gets broken, I don't want to talk too long. So I used to always use that, right? So I used to be careful about the number of people I thanked, because it seemed like every award you got, there was at least a minimum half a dozen people you should thank. I don't care what the award is. There's people responsible for you getting that award, and I think I've never gotten that. I don't know whether, I don't know if Nida told me that. I don't know who told me, but obviously it made sense to me, and so I think that's important. I think that the person that thinks he can do it by himself, the person that thinks he can do it by support, without support, is going to be a loser. You're not doing it. Somebody's helped you get to where you're at.
Yeah.
It could be the least significant person that you, but somebody had an impact, an influence on the way you represent yourself. And I always believed if you represented the college, you represented the college, whether you're speaking in Rochester or wherever you were. I never wore LeMoyne stuff when I was on the road and so forth and so on. But I always felt like I represented the college when I was on the road. And therefore, it just made sense to me. Now, that's pretty simplistic. But most of my life has been simplistic, and I don't get very excited about many things. That could be good or bad, I guess, but I know when they told me I needed bypass. Bypass, what are you talking about? At the time I wasn't overweight. I didn't, and the doctor told me, blame it on your mother's genetics.
Yeah.
Blame your mother for it. So, maybe. So.
Dick Rockwell here with us, and Dick, I think what you've done here today is you've created my desire to want to sit in this family room with you again. I think you've made me want to watch a baseball game with you, and I think the biggest thing for me in what we do on Wake Up Call, why the tagline is where sports meets life. I'm the same on the air, off the air. You're the same on the air, off the air, and I just, in life, it's the experience, it's the connection. I tell people the only currency that you have in heaven is your soul. So if it's dirty, if it's murky, that's on you. If it's bright and it's shiny when you hand it to God, and it has its dings and it has its dents and it has its bruises, but there's light to it, that's on you too. And
I couldn't agree. Sorry for interrupting. I couldn't agree more to that. Absolutely.
And so sitting here with you today, I was honored to get to speak with you in the first place, in the beginning, and I was honored that you would have me come to your house, you and Pam. But beyond that, sitting here with you now, there's no limited amount of questions. There's no I ran out of things to ask you, and at the same time, there's no amount of time that I wouldn't sit here and talk with you. I really am grateful for your honesty. I'm grateful for how candid you are. I'm grateful for your constructive look at how things can be better. I'm grateful for your self-reflection. I'm grateful for your faith, your thankfulness, your humbleness. Really, you know, Dick, I as a broadcaster, it's my job to speak, but sitting here and listening today has been one of the greatest blessings that I've taken with my career and my life. So I want to thank you for giving me today.
You're very too kind. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.